Welcome everybody to this week's very prestigious and amazing DevRel AMA. How's it going, Max?
There was a lot of events on like the Discord thing this week, so I don't know, maybe it just got lost. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? But maybe it's just a quiet week. That's also fine. Hiring is taking up a lot of my time, unfortunately.
Oh, still looking for a helping hand?
Yep.
How's it going so far?
So it's hard to find DevRel. It's a weird job, but I mean it's going. So we'll see. Hopefully by the next one of these, I can proudly introduce someone new. That would be cool.
Ah, nice. We're very close then. Before we get started with the community questions, start leaving them in the chat, guys, so that we can answer them. And also Nick, by the way, our Russian-speaking CM, he gathered a lot of questions from the Russian community for us. So we have a whole bunch of questions loaded in advance. But for now, let's maybe go through what happened with the latest release of the wallets. Do you have any info on that?
Do you mean the kind of bug with the wallet?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So yeah, basically we're looking into that. It seems to at the moment only be affecting Windows users, from what I can tell. And yeah, QA is looking into it. I mean, some people were, we had some reports from people who were using Windows 7, which we don't necessarily officially still support just because it's old, even though I know people still use it because everything after it was garbage. But yeah, it's being looked into. I'm not sure exactly what it is, nor can I really speculate because I have never really built anything for Windows before. But as soon as QA gets back to everyone with some kind of answers, then I'll both me and Sudo will tell everyone. We'll spread it in the community, and I imagine what we'll do is we'll probably do a point release as well. So we'll just kind of put out a patch as soon as we have fixed it.
Yeah, I mean, as of right now, the buggy version was called back or recalled. What was the word for that, Max?
Well, we kind of unreleased it. So yeah, rolled back is like probably the most proper one. Yeah, so we kind of rolled that back. So that isn't now that isn't actually there as a release anymore. So maybe we'll actually just re-release it as version 1. God, what's the wallet on now? 1.1.24? I can't remember. Yeah.
Amazing.
But it will be fixed. And sorry about that, everyone. But also for Windows 7 users, sorry it happened, but then also we're not necessarily always QAing. We're not necessarily QAing against the Windows 7 environment as well, just because it's old now.
Yeah, to be fair though, the issue did not only affect. So I'm on Windows 11. Don't hate me, Max, please, but I am on Windows, and I'm on Windows 11. And I also had the same like weird window popping up, but it was brought back like the same day, so it's all good.
Yeah, something must have slipped through, and we're every time we do a release, we're QAing everything against like a variety of environments, and whatever. Something somewhere must have not lined up, but we'll get it fixed for everyone. And you're not the older version of the wallet as well is still you're not kind of missing any crazy new features or anything like that. So yeah, don't worry too much.
Don't FOMO, guys. It's fine. It's okay. You can wait a week. It's okay. It's gonna be right. Okay, so before we get into the whole bunch of beautiful questions that we got from our Russian community, guys, make sure to leave yours in the chat of this stage because we're going to be answering them. That's what an AMA is about. And also, if you want, you can leave your questions in the community called text channel. So with that, let's get started with the first question. What is the team working on right now, and what are the main priorities?
Should I? Am I not going to do a little dev update?
Yeah. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So there's a couple of things that that I kind of wanted to address. We have a lot of people who are still seeing these the routing score drops after upgrades. This is being looked into, but then at the same time, we are also we are in the process of doing a testnet upgrade of the validators from the admittedly quite old version that they are to a newer version now that Nix is on the horizon. And once we do that, we will. It's kind of a cascade of dependencies. So bear with me on this very long-winded way of saying we're getting to it. So once we have upgraded the testnet sandbox blockchain, then we will do that to mainnet. And then what that allows us to do is then to actually start having validators as well as the chain becoming permissionless, and it being open to other smart contract uploads and all of this, which is obviously great for people who want to write smart contracts. Then one of the other things it'll do is what we used to call the validator API, which is now called the Nym API, which is basically another process, another piece of code that runs on, at the moment, just one validator. And that basically is the endpoint that whenever a client starts up and it needs to get the network topology, it will ping that validator first, right? Because it doesn't necessarily query the smart contract directly. Because the topology rolls over once an hour, then basically you have a cache there that rolls over once an hour as well, which means it just kind of streamlines the whole thing. What that also runs is the network monitor, which is the thing that essentially dictates the routing score that everyone sees on the Explorer and can query from the validator API as well. Why am I bringing this up? Because as soon as the chain is kind of not launched, but as soon as everything is kind of upgraded and opened up, then what will happen is we'll also then be working on distributed measurements. So we'll have multiple instances of this Nym API, which are going to be run on multiple validators. So basically, because that is almost on the horizon, then the work to look into why the network monitor is kind of maybe bugging out for people, maybe if it is the network monitor, I feel like that seems to be a likely cause, but we don't know exactly yet. That work will also kind of be undertaken when we're also decentralizing it, because stuff is going to have to shift around quite seriously as well when we do that. So that's just a bit of an update for everyone with regards to the routing score. Apologies again for that. So yeah, what came out this week in 1.1.17 of the platform release? So what is almost here, hopefully it will be deployed next week, is the service provider directory contract, which means that basically if you run a service provider, you will be able to bond it in and announce it to the rest of the network from the wallet in a similar way, or from the CLI in the same way that you do with a mixed or a gateway, which is great. What that also means is, like, for stuff like Nym Connect, for instance, then we don't have, it's not a manual list that needs to be maintained. It's now held in a smart contract and decentralized and cryptographically secure in terms of people dropping in and out, which is obviously always a good thing to step in the direction of decentralization. I'd say one of the other cool thing as well that we have is we're working on the WebAssembly client, and we're working on it so that we can basically do what's called topology injection, right? Topology injection sounds like something from Metal Gear Solid, but all it basically means is that instead of the WebAssembly client starting up and, like I said before, pinging the Nym API on a validator and saying, hey, what's the topology? What mixed nodes and gateways can I use? What it will mean is that you as a user can basically inject or give your WASM client a different topology, a specific topology. Why is this cool? It's cool for two reasons. One, say if you're wanting to, I don't know, do some benchmarking, do some research, right? And you have a couple of nodes that you specifically want to use for research purposes, then you can do that. The other cool thing is that which also links to the network monitor, what it will allow us to do is it allow us to build a kind of test my node feature, which basically means you don't have to rely on the network monitor. As well, you can use the network monitor in general, but say if you just, you're debugging your mix node, your routing score's down or you can't connect or something's weird about it, and you just want to be able to quickly go, okay, cool, let me try and send, tens of thousands of packets of my mix node, get them back to myself, loop it through the mix node to myself and see if everything's okay, right? Instead of having to wait for the network monitor to run again. That means you can. And this is also a feature that we're going to be building into the wallet as well. So, kind of building out the tooling on that side. Those are the two main things. So the, service providers will soon be in a contract, and topology injection in the WASM client. What this also will mean is that soon we can also have I'm completely blanking on the word. We can have non-ephemeral keys in the TypeScript SDK. So what that basically means is, now with the TypeScript SDK, every time you restart your browser session, you create a new pair of keys. You close your session, those keys are gone, right? Which is obviously fine if you're, just wanting to use it just to dump something somewhere. But, it's not very flexible, because it doesn't really allow you to have longer lasting identities that you could say loads the key pair in whatever situation you're using the TypeScript SDK, right? So it basically means you can then start having permanent identities, but that you can use from the browser, or, we're also working on like a headless Node.js version, or kind of, we're working on getting the TypeScript SDK to work in Node.js as well, which means that then if you wanted to, run it in a Node script, either locally or on a server or something, then you can. So it's all kind of steps in that direction. And I feel like I've said it before, but the key pair stuff for the TypeScript SDK, just because the TypeScript SDK can be used in a browser, browsers are, if you have to be careful when you're doing anything with browsers, right? To make sure that you don't leak anything, and that maybe something's not stored in a browser that it shouldn't be, and all of this kind of stuff. So there is it's not quite as simple as maybe say with the Rust SDK, right? Which is it's a slightly different threat model, because you might be loading a key pair from storage on the same machine, and ultimately, if someone has access to that, then your entire machine is kind of pwned. So someone having access to your Nym key probably might not be the biggest worry you have at that point. Whereas in the browser, obviously there's a lot of other stuff going on, and we just want to make sure that no other browser processes can get access to those. So slow and steady on that front, basically. And yeah, that's kind of it from the. Oh, one other thing, Nym Connect also now supports Monero Desktop, which is cool. I'm working on adding a load of endpoints to the standard list, which means that all network requesters will use it. But if you want to use it right now, then I think it's number 47. Basically, it's the one at the bottom of the list. It now supports both StageNet and Mainnet for Monero Desktop too, which is very cool. And yeah, that's it from the general dev update. So we can go to questions, unless you want me to clarify anything, Sudo.
Yeah, please. Can you please talk about Monero Desktop a little bit? It's really fucking cool, actually.
Yeah, sure. So we're going to be we'll kind of announce a bit more later, but nice little leaked alpha for the people who are here. Yeah, it's Nym Connect, or rather first way, Nym Connect is a certain set of network requesters, right? It's supported by a certain set of network requesters, which all have the same allowed list, basically, or at least they all have certain default domains on this list. And someone who is in the Monero community basically did some work and found out all the endpoints, or a load of the endpoints anyway, that Monero Desktop uses. And so they've also set up a network requester, right? Which is the last one on the list. of ones you can select from Nym Connect. And I'm currently in the process of adding the endpoints they found to the default list. So soon, maybe tomorrow, whenever I get the pull request merged, we will have the capacity to also support Monero Desktop via Nym Connect, which is pretty cool.
That is pretty cool indeed. In the meantime, Dave joined us in the audience. Let me know if you want to jump on stage, Dave, to hang out with us. But for now, let me ask the first community question that we have, which is, I think you kind of already covered that, what the team is working on and what the main priorities are. So maybe let's skip that one. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the SDK.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of covered that.
Yeah, SDK. So the next question is around 8 questions in one question. So let's go with the first one.
Yeah, it's a bunch. It's good.
So let's go with the first question. How popular is Rust? He's asking about the SDK.
I mean, Rust is increasingly popular, I would say. Definitely in the definitely in kind of this, in this world, in the kind of crypto, blockchain, privacy, security adjacent worlds, even though those are all, obviously those are very overlapping Venn diagrams. Rust is, I would say it's increasingly popular because of, because of all of the helpful attributes that Rust has, such as kind of precompiler checking so that you don't have the kind of nasty things that you also get with C, where you have kind of memory allocation problems or these kind of runtime problems that can kind of blow up a program. Rust is obviously very safe, and that's how it was designed. And then a lot of people, if you're building something, especially in the kind of you're trying to build secure, privacy enhanced anonymity stuff, you want to make sure that there are no strange edge cases where something might not go quite as you expect, because what you might not expect could be leaking a bit of a key or leaking a bit of a secret that, in this context is actually a massive problem, right? So that's why Rust is popular in this kind of space, and I think it's increasingly popular elsewhere. Yeah, so how popular is Rust? That's how popular I think it is, basically. But I'm not an authority on Rust, so maybe take that with a pinch of salt. And if anyone has any other more specific info, let me know. Are there any ongoing integrations? Please go.
No, go ahead. I just wanted to mention to everybody listening that Service Marine just left an article about the popularity of Rust in the chat, so you may want to check that out.
Are there any ongoing integrations with the Rust SDK? None right now that can be talked about, unfortunately. In terms of more general integrations, then we have some really cool stuff on the horizon. And as was already announced a while ago, then we also have the work that's happening with ChainSafe, with the libp2p Nym Rust library or module, right? Which, to kind of reiterate that, libp2p is, it was originally made by to be used in IPFS, Interplanetary File System, right? But then kind of basically everyone realized that actually on its own, it's, almost on the level of, the public good that everyone is kind of floating around the, the kind of crypto decentralized web space at the moment. This idea of a public good as a shared resource that other projects, other people, other developers, other whatever can kind of all tap into these things, right? And so, libp2p has multiple implementations in different languages, because whatever you might be writing in, it's pointless if your tech stack is written in TypeScript and there's a great Rust module somewhere, but because you can't use it. So there's multiple implementations of the libp2p module. And what's happening right now is ChainSafe, who are a great development research group, who also maintain a couple of pretty core libraries, like the Lighthouse Ethereum client, which is used by a lot of validators. They basically are working on not quite a fork, but it's kind of it's the libp2p module written in Rust using Nym as a transport layer, right? Which can then be integrated into something like Lighthouse. So that's very cool. Other integrations, I can't say much, but apart from the classic, soon TM. When will I release a Nym Rust SDK tutorial? So, I am currently tinkering with a little kind of dev tool thing, which I've already talked about before. It's kind of like when you're writing one piece of code and you want to make sure that, for instance, you're writing a service provider and you just need to send a load of messages to it and kind of, either watch it fail, watch it succeed, watch what happens, basically, as happens when you're developing something. It's a similar way that, people might use Postman to test that like an API they're working on is responding in the way that they would like it to. So yeah, I'm kind of building a little dev tool, actually using the Rust SDK for that. And what I think I might do is I might either turn that into a tutorial, or alternatively, as part of the write-up for the demo that I did in Barcelona with Secret Network, which is how you would send a Cosmos transaction through the mixnet. I might also rewrite that service using the Rust SDK and put a tutorial up for that. Like I said before, a lot of effort is going into hiring at the moment, which, apart from the fact it's just me running stuff, also means that, that takes up a lot of time as well. But it is being worked on in the background, slowly. And what about a Go SDK? Right now, there are no plans for a Go SDK, but if this is something that people would find particularly useful, like shout out, and maybe we can look into doing that. Yeah, basically. So I think that's all of the sub questions from question 2.
Yeah, but there are also a lot of sub questions to question 3 as well. But before getting into that, maybe let's talk a little bit about what the difference is between Rust and Go for a noob. And sorry if for the audience it's a boring question, but I'm the host, so I get to ask boring questions.
So just a general, what's the difference? What's the same things between them, kind of?
Yeah, that would be nice.
Okay, cool. So I mean, right. So Rust and Go are both languages that you can use to do quite low-level stuff, right? What do I mean by low-level? Low-level things are, ultimately things that are the majority of developers might not necessarily ever deal with, right? You might be building you might be trying to build an operating system, right? Or, kind of like an operating system for a microcontroller, or you might be trying to build a very, very safe, like a web server that's very, very safe and very, very fast, right? Or alternatively, in our case, you might be building privacy infrastructure that you want to make sure does exactly what you think it does. And if it doesn't, then it'll throw an error, right? Because that's the big, there's different, obviously in different situations, either lower or higher up in the kind of tech stack you imagine, if you imagine like a web application is at the top and, the server infrastructure that thing lives on at the bottom and all of the stuff in between, then, you have different, essentially, you have different expectations for safety, I would say. If I'm writing I'm writing a piece of JavaScript that I need to live in the browser and, maybe it prints something to the browser when an event happens, or, it shows you a little notification or something, right? It's okay to have a little bit of indeterminacy with regards to how that works, or maybe some fuzzy edge cases, right? Because worst case scenario, my notification might happen unexpectedly. Whereas, as I was kind of saying before, if you're building a mixnet, you're building the components of a mixnet, we want to make sure that all a mixnode does is accept accept a packet, decrypt the outside layer, hold it for a bit, and send it to where it's meant to go. And that's all we wanted to do. And if a situation arises that doesn't essentially fit that kind of the logic that you're writing, you want it to kind of fail or error, okay? Because you don't want it to just think, oh, okay, I'll just try and do that, because then something bad might happen. So both Go and Rust are really good for this. For instance, the Cosmos SDK framework is written in Go. And so, both of them are, both these languages are also very fast, right? They are compiled languages, right? So what that means is that you write a piece of Rust or a piece of Go, you compile it, right? Which basically means you turn it from the kind of human readable code that we have, or at least vaguely human readable, to machine code, right? And that will kick out at the end, it kicks you out an executable file, it kicks you out a binary, right? Much in the same way that you, if you just download the mix nodes or gateways or whatever from our releases page, you just get a binary, right? And what this means is that at runtime, so literally when they're being used, they're a lot faster because they're already compiled, okay? It's already there in machine code versus, say, something like Python, where these are called interpreted languages, right? Which basically means that, they're not precompiled. And the stuff like, basically stuff like error checking and type checking and memory allocation and all of these kind of things that a lot of the time as a programmer, you don't necessarily have to think about if you're just, building an application that's not kind of a deeper system application, right? With Python or other interpreted languages, these are checked at runtime. So what that basically means is that, you might start running a Python script or a Java, a piece of JavaScript, and then actually a weird situation occurs, right? Where you haven't allocated for maybe getting a message in a type, that you didn't expect. Maybe you get a string instead of an integer, and then your program might blow up because it doesn't know what to do with this. Rust and Go, these are both, all of this is checked at compile time. So basically, especially with Rust, also I can speak a little bit more authoritatively regarding Rust because I'm in no way a Go programmer. I'm like a baby Rust programmer or a very junior Rust programmer, but I'm not really a Go programmer. So if anyone also has more experience with this, chime in. But all of this stuff is checked at compile time. So basically, it means that, say, if you've not really dealt with your types very well, your program just won't compile, right? Which is maybe more annoying if you're trying to do something quickly, but it gives you greater security at the end because you kind of know it's going to work. Differences are, I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. I feel like Rust might be slightly safer because it's got, because it does all of this type checking that I was kind of, referencing before. But, basically, I think they're both very, very good for writing safe applications that are very deterministic in their actions. The Cosmos SDK wouldn't have been written in Go unless it could do this. I think Rust might be slightly faster, but to be honest, I'm not 100% sure. Does that answer your question?
I learned something again. I really like to hijack these DevRel AMAs because I can take notes and learn some stuff. So absolutely gorgeous. Thank you. Moving on to some product speech, and I already see the questions, and I already know that we're gonna drop a lot of soon TMs and a lot of maybes and kind of vague answers, but let's get into it. So Nym products, the next question category, and when will we see the first release of the mobile app? I don't know what they mean. Maybe the mobile wallet, I guess, browser extension, Nym VPN, and hardware wallet support.
Some of these I can answer, some of these I can't. With regards to having Nym on a mobile, then at the moment, unfortunately, that's slightly stalled because the framework that we're using to make our desktop apps, so the framework that we use for Nym Connect and for the wallet, is a framework called Tauri. Basically, what it means is you can really nicely, really easily kind of marry together elements of Rust and elements of TypeScript, right? Which is great because it means you can kind of reuse core bits of the code that are written in Rust and are nice and safe. You don't have to rewrite them in TypeScript, which is fantastic. A, because you don't have to rewrite a library, which is brilliant, but B, you don't have to maintain it as well. But you can write your front end in TypeScript, which is also a slightly, it's a safer kind of subset of JavaScript that likes having, as the name would suggest, types for everything, right? So instead of what JavaScript does, where if you give a variable, just like a random piece of input, it will just infer what the type is that you want to deal with, right? So say you, but sometimes it does this wrong. So say you might be trying to give it like a byte array, and then JavaScript might just go, oh, okay, well, that's an object. So I'll just treat it as an object, which, as I once found out from spending a day trying to get signature verification to work, sometimes just happens and is very annoying. So TypeScript doesn't do that. It means it's, again, it's slightly less leaky. You can imagine it like that. So this framework that we're using is also quite, it's pretty new stuff, right? This framework, Tauri, is also in active development. And so the mobile app, Tauri has some functionality, which basically allows you to take a code base and then kind of squish it into a mobile app, right? Which again is fantastic because it means you don't have to maintain, you're not adding a whole new code base that you have to maintain for the mobile version of an app. However, we have essentially hit a snag, and we seem to have found some slightly strange behavior in the way that Tauri is doing something. So we're having to wait on the Tauri team for this, because otherwise we are working on a mobile version of Nym Connect, right? Which would be very, very exciting to see. This, of course, is going to be something that we're just working on, very kind of actively working on. So look at your question 4. Then this is something that we'll probably share with the community and say, hey, do you want to do some, you want to do some beta testing? Because there is a question about, on a deeper level, there's a question of using Nym in a mobile format because of the way that phones work. Basically, the desktop app, right, which is assuming you have Wi-Fi, it doesn't really matter if you're sending a constant stream of packets, right? And especially in a desktop setting or a server setting or even a laptop setting, then you can plug your laptop into the wall, you keep power. Whereas with a phone, then sending like a constant stream of traffic actually may drain your phone battery quite quickly. So this is also something we have to experiment with, right? So we'll see. We might have to do some jiggling around of maybe the speed or the amount of cover traffic that like mobile versions of the apps use, or kind of start firing off when they connect to the network. So yeah, browser extension, Nym VPN, hardware wallet support. Hardware wallet support, nothing I can talk about, but stay tuned. Browser extension, Nym VPN. I can't give you a date, unfortunately. This is also stuff that's being worked on, but I can't really give you a date. So soon, unfortunately. Yeah. Also, just as a heads up, sudo. Usually we can run over, but I have to go at about 5 to 6, so I've got about 20 minutes. Just as a heads.
Okay, all right. Very quick note on the order of things. So we don't have exact dates, but it looks like the browser extension wallet is making some pretty good progress. So I was told that one comes out before the mobile app for sure. So the rest of the details will be announced once we have them. And then you also answered question 4, which was that do you need volunteers for the early product testing? Probably we will. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be reaching out on Discord and probably on Telegram as well, or maybe actually on Element. You should, if you're interested in such things. This dude over here, Max, is mostly hanging out on Element, which is understandable. If I got to do that, I'd probably also do that instead of Discord because of the privacy concerns. So just join our public Element channels. While Max is answering the next question, I will be looking up a link and sharing it with you guys. So the next question is, so are there any plans to partner and or integrate Nym with major blockchains and their ecosystems?
I mean, I think we've already, there are, as we kind of said before, there's no ongoing public integrations that we can necessarily chat about, right? That said, there is some cool stuff that is happening under the hood to allow people to interact with, to essentially allow people to privacy enhance the way that they interact with major blockchains, right? But that's all I can kind of say at the moment. In terms of kind of partnering and integration. I mentioned before the ability to send Cosmos transactions, for instance, through the mixnet. This is this is a piece of code that I'm kind of tightening up. And in the dev portal, as well in the kind of community projects section, then we do also have some bits of some like community projects as well that people are working on, mostly to be able to interface with Ethereum, right? And going back to what I was saying before about the service provider contract, which hopefully will be coming out next week, this is also pretty cool because what this means is that people can also, or people soon will also be able to announce services aside from network requesters, right? Which, when you combine that with Coconut, or ZK Nyms rather, after we get bandwidth credentials working, then service credentials will not be far behind. And then what that means is, the combination of these two things means that basically these services, which right now people just kind of want to build and run altruistically, people can actually start announcing them publicly, right, to the network. They'll be on an Explorer. They can be accessed via the CLI. We can start building ways that people can find these apps a lot better. And then people can also pay to use them. So that's not really partnerships and integrations. That's more kind of like, it will be a lot easier for people to start like building their own stuff and like announcing it to the rest of the Nym kind of community to be used, right? And then also hopefully make that community grow. What progress is made on launching ZK Nym credentials for private access to apps? In progress. A lot of this is kind of also relying on us getting NICs rolling. So as soon as, and decentralizing the API of that, which also allows us to start doing stuff like distributed key generation, which means we can start doing Coconut. So there is all of this, like I said, is kind of these cascading dependencies, but it is in progress, and there is no news on NICs that I can share, unfortunately. And just let's, because we've got 20 minutes left, let's go to other questions as well, I think.
All right. So one question from Dear Paul Flake is whether we can bond more than one node gateway or network provider to one wallet.
Well, I mean, it's not one wallet, is it? It's kind of one address. At the moment, we're going to keep it as one address, one node or gateway. And will it be this way forever? If there are enough, if this is something that a lot of people would like to see changed, then let us know. I mean, it's kind of a, you could also just kind of make multiple accounts as well, and then kind of load them differently in the wallet. But that's obviously a point of friction for interacting with your infrastructure. So it could be something that might change, but there's no like plan to do that right now.
All right. So the next one is from Nick. Is it possible to integrate native Nym, ERC? So like I guess the bridging between a native and an ERC-20 Nym into the Nym wallet, which is something that we hear about very, very often. This is a very common question from the community.
Okay, okay. I mean, it's I think okay. There's kind of two ways of answering this. It's like, is it technically possible? Yes, I think it would be. But what we also have to think about is like the amount of like complexity and dependencies that adds in, right? And you know, if you think about, so at the moment, ERC-20 to native Nym to Cosmos, right? So Ethereum to Cosmos bridging. At the moment, that involves a couple of steps, right? You are, say if you're going from ERC-20 to native Nym, right? That goes from the Ethereum chain, depositing those ERC-20 tokens in the Gravity Bridge smart contract on the Ethereum mainnet, that then being picked up by the Gravity Gravity Bridge chain, right? Which is a Cosmos SDK chain, yeah. All of their validators, or 2/3 of their validators, saying, "Oh yeah, we saw that transaction that's happening on Ethereum. It looks legit, cool. All of the signatures match and everything." And then doing an IBC transfer from Gravity to the next chain, right? So there's quite a few steps involved with this, and there's also what this also needs is then you kind of need both MetaMask and Kepler, right, to be able to do this. And so what that would mean if you were going to do it in the wallet, then you would basically have to also have whatever kind of whatever client MetaMask is kind of using, or you'd have to have some kind of an ETH client as well, also integrated into the wallet, and then you would also have to. So there'd be a lot of communication basically happening just to do. It sounds deceptively simple, right? We just bridge it from Ethereum to Nix, but actually because the Gravity Bridge is a very like secure bridging setup, right? It's its own chain, it's its own blockchain. Some bridges, and you know, people have heard me talk about bridges on here before. Then you know, some bridges are kind of it's just like a multi-sig or something like this, but you know, Gravity is its own chain, and then we have to do an IBC transfer from Gravity to Nix. So there's a lot of moving parts there. So right now it's not a priority because there's other cooler stuff that we want to work on as well. But you know, if this is something that like people want to would like to see, then yeah, we can have a look. People can put in something like a feature request, and yeah.
Amazing. That would be great because we do get this question from time to time. People don't really like the current process of bridging tokens between the two chains.
Nick, how can you vote? Just put in a feature request on GitHub. So it's not really voting, but it's kind of voting. Cool.
Next question is from Node. This is also something that we got before. So will there be some kind of an update from the teams who received Nym grants a few months ago and what they achieved and stuff like that?
Yeah, there will. I mean, there will. Yeah, there will basically. This is, you know, people are still working on grants and all of this kind of stuff, but there will be an announcement, or there'll be some more information. And if you want to follow it, then again, jump in the Matrix channel and in the dev and dev grantees channels. This is where we kind of chat. So you can also follow updates in there.
Easy. And actually, that brings us to the end of the questions. I guess, Max, if you have to leave, then maybe let's cut this one short.
Yeah, you don't have to join Matrix. No dump node. I mean, we will do. You know, we'll do a little write up and stuff as well. It's just if we're doing something like a write up, it makes more sense to wait until maybe the majority of people are kind of doing stuff. But yeah, it is more fun on Matrix, and the interface is way nicer.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Max is actually consciously moving the fun over to Matrix, so it's his doing. All right. Well, in that case, Max, I think I'll let you go, and also the audience as well. Big thanks for jumping on today. Do you have any closing thoughts about anything?
Closing thoughts are that, like I said before, right? It's kind of there's a lot of like cascading dependencies at the moment. Okay, and a lot of these, basically, what I'm saying is, there will be a flurry of activity in terms of kind of new functionality and new things, I would say. So just hold tight for those. You know, there's it's yeah, we're furiously working on stuff, but a lot of it is kind of pretty deep stuff as well, and so that will kind of appear quite suddenly, I think, for people as well, because sometimes development is like that. Sometimes it's, you know, there's a lot of work and then you kind of flip a switch and a new thing just appears, and sometimes it's a lot more gradual, as we've seen with maybe like the, you know, the features being added to the wallet or to Nym Connect, right? This kind of new bits every week. So yeah, just hang tight, and hopefully in the not too distant future at all, then we will have a load of new cool stuff to share with you. That's about it.
Nice. Can't wait for the avalanche of stuff coming out. And on that note, I will let everybody go. Big thanks for joining. Unfortunately, this time, once again, Pizza J is busy, so there's no pull-up for this this DevRel AMA, but you will have one for the upcoming community call, which is next Friday. It's going to be really interesting. So make sure to stay tuned for that. And have a lovely rest of the day, wherever you are in the world, and catch you on the channels. Bye, everyone.
Ciao, guys.